All right. So we just got back from the Superman movie, the new Superman movie by James Gunn, written and directed by James Gunn. And we wanted to share our thoughts, just our fresh thoughts and feelings on, what the film was about and, if we liked it and so on and so forth, just sort of get that hot take after seeing it. What sayest thou, Tarek?
Yeah, there's been a lot of talk about it since its release, right? Personally, yeah, I loved it. I thought it was the best Superman film thus far that I've ever seen, for sure. Like I was saying before we had those little technical adjustments there, the portrayal of the character was fantastic. So many... Should we hold for the stretching kitty just in case she was in frame? I feel like she probably would have been.
That's all right. Go on.
So many genuine moments of humanity that you could really see. They did a great job of that portrayal of his relationships with the people in his life that matter to him, like his parents and Lois Lane and Jimmy Olsen. And, I thought that those tie-ins really showed how he stayed anchored in his humanity and kindness as a character, which I thought was really well done.
Yeah, I thought it was the most, the kindest, most human Superman I've ever seen. I thought like they did a really good job of portraying his humanity, but just how much of a good person he was, really, at the end of the day. Like, just like my good little kitty Thud, who wants to be on the show. Which is fine. People love cats. We all do. He cares about people deeply, and they exemplify that through the movie over and over and over again. There's some spoilers here, so if you don't want to hear it, pause or fast forward or whatever.
Yeah, David Cornsweet. Yeah, best portrayal in my opinion.
Yeah,
of Superman ever.
But like, he saves a squirrel. He saves an old lady. He saves a dog. He's always saving people. He's always doing things to exemplify his kindness and his just his caring for people, how he deeply cares for people, and he wants to do everything he can to help them, and how pure that is. That's sort of awesome. That's something that I think not a lot of filmmakers have been brave enough to kind of dig into. Don't get me wrong, I love Man of Steel. I love sci-fi, sci-fi adventure, fantasy Superman, with a dark, gritty kind of edge and a sort of realism to it. This cat will not stay away. I mean, I want to include her, but she's just getting right in there.
Yeah, the handling noises might make it an issue, right? Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Oh boy. I really loved Zack Snyder's take on Superman with Man of Steel. I loved Henry Cavill as Superman. And the DCEU,
Henry Cavill in pretty much any role ever is great.
And the DCEU, the extended universe, the previous one, had, it was a hit and miss thing. Sometimes it was really good, sometimes it wasn't. But this movie seems like it's really promising for what's going to be coming moving forward, with what James Gunn has planned for the next 10 years. I just thought it was a really loving, caring portrayal. Yeah, so I mean, if this is anything that would indicate, where they're going tonally and stylistically, into the future with their comic book adaptations at DC, I think it'll be really promising and fun. It was a colorful, bright movie. It wasn't a sci-fi fantasy, dark, weird, Superman with demons movie. It was like a bright, hopeful, optimistic Superman. It was just a comic book movie, period. I feel like it was just like in a really distilled a lot of comic goodness into a celluloid, basically.
Yeah, I would agree with that for sure. A lot of really beautiful cinema, a lot of amazing frames and sequences, like the flight sequences were fantastic. Yes. The fight sequences as well, also like the combat scenes, those sequences were also really strong. And yeah, I would agree with Leif that very much comic book movie, right? Mm-hmm. Like, it's kind of back to its original storyline of like Superman since its creation. He's always been that side of the coin, right? So yeah, it was nice that it is definitely very much a comic book style story of adaptation of that storyline, which is great to see. So, you know, Superman is actually credited with being the very first, like, you know, superhero ever created. And that was what, you know, the golden age of comic books is attributed to, which began, according to record, in June of 1938. And that was with the debut of Superman Action Detective Comics #1. So it is very cool to see them going back to more of that original character of, like, you know, his substance and being on that side of the coin of standing for all of the good in the collective humanity.
Yeah, it was wonderful to see. You know, I loved when he blew the dog away when it was trying to help him with the kaiju, and he's holding the kaiju foot up, and the dog was barking at the kaiju, and he's like, "Get out of here!" and he blew it away.
Yeah.
The squirrel was a source of controversy, by the way. A lot of people got pissed off by that. Like,
really? I thought that really put the exclamation point on how he cares about everyone.
Yeah, I thought so too. And James Gunn actually was instructed to take it out, and then he put it back in.
Nice.
And I'm glad he did, because I thought that was kind of like, he saved the squirrel. So there you go. I mean, he's going to save everyone he can. There's not going to be like massive collateral damage Superman like Man of Steel. Like, let's face it, like lots of people died when he was fighting Zod.
Yeah.
Which they did kind of deal with in Batman versus Superman, which I liked the beginning, because it showed that fueled Batman's rage to see all the destruction that happened after they fought. But
yeah.
It just wasn't the same.
And that is kind of often a different influence on, like, the more gritty, darker takes on the comic book storylines, right? When sometimes those heroes or anti-heroes, depending on, you know, whoever you're watching, will be okay with that, like, collateral damage, so to speak, of, like, maybe letting some people, sacrificing them for, you know, I guess, in a way, or just letting them meet their own demise because they're so tunnel visioned in on whatever their mission is to complete.
But Superman is so powerful. He's got, like, godlike powers that comes with the responsibility to, like, you know, just help everyone he possibly can, right?
Which is interesting that you put it that way. Yeah, because that was one of probably the number one reason that as a comic book kid, he was never one of my favorite characters. He was just, you know, too perfect. Yeah,
I went in and out of enjoying Superman. I mostly ended up enjoying him in Justice League books. I would often get, like, trade paperbacks of, like, you know, a year or two of, like, Justice League or whatever, and those are the Superman stories I knew, and I knew him from the cartoons and the movies. But I was more of a Batman guy, Daredevil guy when I was a kid, when I was reading comics.
Yeah, and there is always that crossover, of course, between Marvel and DC in terms of, like, fandom, and also you saying that, like, you know, he has that responsibility, which of course rings true to that infamous Spider-Man line of "with great power comes great responsibility."
Of course, we all know it.
So it's interesting that those, you know, storylines and, like, the values of the lessons trying to be taught are universal in the way they cross over from those different origin stories, right?
Yeah, no, that's a good point. And I really liked the groundedness of Batman and Daredevil. Even though there was some fantastic elements, it was more of a grounded thing than Superman. That's why it kind of drew me to it. Even Spider-Man, because even though he had fantastic powers, his life was very grounded. You know, he had regular people problems, like how am I going to pay the rent and trying to keep his job. And
I always liked Daredevil as a character too. Yeah, that was an interesting storyline for sure.
And he's a pro bono lawyer, so he really cares about people, right?
Yes, totally. Yeah. We're kind of getting away from the movie, though.
Yeah, I know we are. Anyways, so long and the short of it is we loved Superman. I think probably, as Tarek said, best, you know, adaptation I've seen personally. If you want to just say, you know, you're going to purely adapt a comic book, I think that that's like a job well done by James Gunn and company, because it was really good. It was well cast. Rachel Brosnahan, I think is how you say her name.
As
Lois Lane was great.
She was great, yeah. And the way that they used that relationship, that they showed us more intimate moments with them, because as different from a lot of previous stories that we've seen, like we were talking about earlier, they just go right into it. So he's... You know, there isn't that whole first act build up that, you know, we all know the story of the origin and stuff. He's already in a relationship with Lois Lane in this film, which is really interesting. So it gave them the option to use that intimacy between them and that relationship to really show more, you know, like more evidence of his humanity and just how much he cares and why he does care about people, even though they call him an alien being. But, you know, he's human just as much as anybody.
Well, it allowed them to go deeper which I thought was really great to see. Deeper than I think they've ever gone before in their relationship, you know, because that was a big part of the movie. Yeah. They have a fantastic scene, which apparently I heard was one of the first scenes they filmed on day one, which was the scene with them debating when she interviewed him as Superman.
Yeah, that was good.
And I thought that was great because that really set the table for the stakes of how everyone felt about things and what their opinion was, and where Superman stood in this world where he has these fantastic powers, and what kind of responsibility does he have to have with those powers. And I know it's that thing that we don't want to say because it's so cliched, but that they did a sort of another take on how geopolitically that would sort of fit into everything, which I thought was fascinating. And also, obviously, without getting down the political rabbit hole, because this is not the channel for political rabbit holes, but there was definitely some parallels between, you know, Palestine and Israel, or, you know, Ukraine and Russia.
You can hear.
Oh, we got a whining dog in the background. That's life. You know, that's true. I'm not in the studio. So yeah, there was a lot of parallels between Israel and Palestine and Russia and the Ukraine, and I was even getting teared up at one point when this kid was like screaming for Superman to come save them, and then he sort of gets saved just at the last moment, while these like soldiers are pouring into this poorer country. You could really just see like the soldiers could be Israel and the poorer country could be Palestine, you know? Yeah,
or Russia.
And not to choose sides on that. Just all human suffering sucks, and I'm not picking sides, and I don't want to get into a political rabbit hole on that. But you definitely see James Gunn was playing with those themes, which, you know, I think are pretty pertinent and kind of potent for people to see in a film, because it kind of speaks to, you know, our experience in the world right now, as we know, is a little mental. But yeah, I really liked what he was doing there. And I thought that it was a fun, fluid movie. There was no origin story. There was no first act setup to something happening. Everything was kind of happening right from the beginning. Lex Luthor was deliciously evil in this too, almost mustache twirlingly so, wasn't he? I thought Nicholas Hoult did a fantastic job as Lex Luthor. Your thoughts on that, Tark?
Yeah, no, he did for sure. But yeah, there were, you know, I agree. There was definitely, it seemed to be, there was a lot of parallels between some of the current world events and what was going on in the storyline. And yeah, that seemed pretty obvious. And I like the commentary on it about like the good of humanity will always prevail over the dark side of humanity. But, you know, that remains to be seen. I would always hope so, obviously. And I'm not as reminiscent to pick sides. I will definitely talk about that with anybody who wants to. Just because, you know, it's terrible stuff what's happening, obviously. Yeah, I thought, you know, there was a lot of great casting choices. I mean, with anything, it's not, you know, perfect and stuff. And there were some characters that I didn't care for. You
didn't like Nathan Fillion as Guy Gardner?
Not really, no.
I didn't mind him.
He was really off-putting, even though, like I told you, you know, I
supposed to be off-putting, I think. But
yeah, he just had like that arrogance about him, right? And like I told you, I mean, I was as much of a fan of Firefly back in the day as anybody. So it's not that I have, you know, any personal disrespect for Nathan Fillion in any way. I just didn't love the character is all. But if that's what, you know, they told him to play as like an arrogant idiot, then he definitely nailed it for sure on that part.
You know, you weren't aware of Mr. Terrific. He is a character from the comics. He's kind of like an African-American Tony Stark.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, and he and the T actually on his face is actually camouflage. It blurs his face so he can't be tracked by digital anything.
Interesting. They didn't mention that at all.
Yeah, they should have probably mentioned that. That's why he wears the mask, because it isn't hiding his identity, but it blurs his identity to surveillance.
Not. Interesting. Okay.
And he can't be tracked. His whole body can't be tracked. And I think he's somewhat augmented too, a little bit. Like, and he's also a master martial artist. He knows like every martial art, like Batman.
Okay. That character storyline I was not familiar with beforehand.
Yeah. Well, he was awesome in the movie. I thought that the actor who played him nailed it.
Yeah, he kind of saved the whole day.
Yeah, what was the guy's name again?
That played him. Hold on. Yeah.
Edie Gathegi, I think is how you say it. Yeah. Anyways, he was great as Mr. Terrific, and with his T-spheres creating force fields and hitting guys. There's this great 360 sequence, you know, when he's protecting Lois Lane. He's fighting all of Lex Luthor's Planet Watch soldiers, his Raptors or whatever you call them. these like high tech sort of super soldiers, and he just kicks ass with his T spheres. It's pretty cool. It's a really good sequence. It was a lot of fun. But the one thing I want to talk about before we sign off, because I don't want to belabor this, and we can talk more about other stuff maybe on the podcast. I just wanted this to be a segment, fresh after we saw it. But we have to talk about crypto.
Yeah, that was a really nice inclusion. We've never seen that before, which is really cool.
And that you've never seen crypto in a movie before, and I thought, how cool is that to see him be in there, not just as a novelty, but as an actual like integral character that is really is a huge part of the plot right up to the third act. And just have that love, that animal love in there. There's a lot of animal love in this movie, and James Gunn is a well-known animal lover and activist. He actually LiDAR scanned his dog. So the dog in the movie is his dog. It's his stray dog.
That's fun.
Or his rescue dog that he got. And the rescue dog that he got is a bad dog like him. Like, did rip up his house and is hard to train and is too rough with people. So the whole character of Crypto is sort of loosely based on his rescue, which I thought was really sweet.
Yeah.
And but the only difference is they made Crypto white for the film.
And James
Gunn's dog is black, I think, or dark gray or something like that.
Interesting.
So Crypto is really funny in this and saves the day a bunch of times, and we get a really cool, no spoilers, if you want to know anything about the movie that is a surprise or cool, then you can stop listening now, but we're going to just keep talking about it. Supergirl makes a really quick appearance at the end, and we find out that that Superman's just been taking care of Crypto for her,
which explains his answer to Lois earlier in the film when he says it's more of a foster situation, like it's not really his dog. And then when she appears, you're like, oh, okay.
Well, and also, that's another part of the movie that really got me. There was two parts that got me. It was when he says he's out there and he's afraid. Yeah. Like, he's not even a good dog, but I have to go help him because he's out there and he's afraid, and I need to rescue him. Like, just that purity of him caring so much, even for this animal that isn't really that grateful and kind of misbehaves a lot.
Yeah, that was a great beat. A really nice moment in the movie.
In the story, I love that. That got me kind of emotional because that really just showed the level of his empathy.
Yeah, and without trying to be comedic, it was comedic because of the way that he answered the question. But it was also touching. That was a good moment.
Same time.
Sure. Yeah.
And then also, like, when the kid was saying Superman at the end, and then gets saved at the last moment by Guy Gardner, the Green Lantern. He protects him with a force field, and Superman couldn't show up, but you get an upgrade kid, which is probably one of the best lines for Guy Gardner in the movie.
That was his character's best line, for sure.
That was pretty funny as he floats down.
And I mean, it was interesting the way that he kept trying to sell his other team members on the Justice Gang title.
Yeah, that was funny. That was a good running gag.
Name. One thing I thought that was really interesting about it as well is they really tied in an interesting thing about modern technology, about being able to use that propaganda tool against, Superman, the way that Lex Luthor harnessed that. And it was, a great portrayal of that character, obviously, because he, between him and the Bravia president, it was like the representation... Bravia president, between those two characters, it was basically the complete other side of the coin, representation of the dark side of humanity, right? The things that, like, people will do in the name of, aspirations of power or wealth or whatever it might be. And
you said earlier, the ICE thing. The ICE parallel, like secret prisons, people getting grabbed up for petty reasons in prison.
Yeah, there's a part of the storyline that really was disturbing to me, just because of the way it parallels reality. And they did do some really fantastical, really big scale scenes in this movie that were beautiful, use of graphics and all of the tools that modern Hollywood has, and it was executed in a really cool way. Those slow down effects where he's like saving the girl from the debris, that was really cool. But yeah, the parallel to reality in the way that this madman could just imprison these people because they had upset him for whatever reason, and then they were just disappeared away from their family to a place where nobody knew what happened to them. They had no way to reach out to the outside world. To me, it felt like that was a direct parallel to the Trump administration and all of the insane things that are happening with ICE down in America. Like, it seemed like his personal military force was a representation of those ICE officers, in my opinion.
Also, Lex is kind of like the personification of like technology perverted.
Yeah.
Like technology can be good can be used for good or bad, and he's like perverted it for his own,
personal gain.
Selfish personal gain. Yeah. But also, I love how he says at one point, he says that Superman says it's because he's envious. He says, "I'm not dumb. Of course, I know everything I do is fueled by envy."
That was a good monologue. I really enjoyed that scene as well.
Yeah, it was really good.
And the back and forth between them, like what Superman said. Hold on, what is his name again? It's Cornsweat, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what David Cornsweat said in that little monologue back and forth between them about what is the most powerful part of him is his heart and his humanity, his tie to human beings and the goodness of the world. That I thought was a fantastic scene. And then the way that Lex came back at him with his justification for his own insanity and horrible acts it was a great scene. It really was.
Good way to cap off the movie. And then there's some really fun moments. We won't ruin them all here just in case you aren't cutting away for spoilers, but fantastic film. We won't belabor it, I don't think. I think that's probably pretty good, unless you got any other thoughts there rolling around your head.
Not really that comes off to them. Well, except for the Susan Sarandon thing. Have you heard about this yet? I don't think you've heard about this.
No, I haven't.
Okay, so Susan Sarandon, who we all love, of course. The James Gunn. Well, hold on. Let me just start that over again. So the movie has come under a lot of fire since a lot of critical stuff about like blah blah blah, people pissing and moaning. So Susan Sarandon, who we all love and is from fame of so many things over the years, like what a legend, right? Like the Rocky Horror Picture Show, Witches of Eastwick, The Client, Shall We Dance, which is one of my grandmother's personal favorites because Richard Gere was in it and she always loved dance movies. There was Blue Beetle, which is another DC movie which I really enjoyed. We could talk about that some other day.
I love that movie.
It was a great cast.
It was fun.
And then she's on that new film Nona's on Netflix. That's on my to-watch list with Vince Vaughn. Supposed to be really good. And my personal favorite, That's My Boy, when she played...
I remember that.
Yeah, Adam Sandler's saucy teacher.
The New Kids in the Block back tattoo that grew out because he got it when he was a little kid and it looks all deformed now.
And all their heads are warped. Yeah,
really good.
It's so good. So Susan Sarandon came to... the defense of James Gunn, or praised him, really, I should say. And her quote, I quote, is Susan Sarandon said, "Love this movie. Superman stops the non-specific colonization of indigenous people by a ruthless military. So unless you identify as a colonizer, you should not be upset."
Yeah.
I would 100% agree with her on that.
Oh, amen, Susan. I thought it was going to be bad. I thought she was going to say something crazy sauce. I'm so glad I agree with her.
She loved it. She loved it.
Of course she did, because it's really funny because like the Fox people are losing their minds. They're having aneurysms over the movie saying it's woke. I'm like, Superman's always been about an immigrant. It was written by immigrants, Jewish immigrants.
Yeah.
So
and it's unfortunate that the two creators of that storyline, of that character, got so screwed over when they did. But that's a topic for another time.
Yeah,
you can research that on your own if you want. It's unfortunate, but it is the way it is. And that does remind me of one other thing that we were talking about, maybe that we should touch on just before we sign off, where you said you didn't like the punk rock line, but I really did.
Yeah, like they're having this conversation and Lois is reflecting on she's just a kid who used to be a punk rocker, and they're talking about music, and
she's belittling his musical taste, which is a fun little moment between them.
But then he basically says like that being kind and caring about people and trying to do everything you can to help them is punk rock. And
yes.
I just thought the line just felt like it landed with a thud. It sounded a little bit cheesy when it happened, and I understood it.
Yeah.
I did understand it from a screenwriting perspective when I heard it.
You could argue that it's a little cliche at this point. You could. And my take on it, I disagreed with Leif on this one, where I actually really like that line, because I do agree that if you look at it from a perspective of, we live in a world that arguably is driven by greed and corruption and, capitalism and lust for profit. I think that you can definitely argue being kind to people and trying to and just be a good human being is very punk rock.
Amen
It's much easier, I think, to go the other way.
I agree with that. All right. On that note, we'll call it a day. We will see you soon. And check into the channel, Cadborosaurus Films.
Go watch Superman. It was great.
Go watch Superman.
Bye, guys.